We're into the final stretch of the regular season. What questions do we still need to solve about the Toronto Maple Leafs? We'll discuss that and tee up the weekend showdown against the Blue Jackets. You're listening to the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome into the Locked On Leafs podcast, a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast hosted by myself, Mike DiStefano, and my co-host, Dave Morassutti. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in a bonus bet if your first $5 bet wins. What's happening, Dave? How we feeling on a Friday?
Feeling pretty good, just another opportunity for the Leafs to try to add some separation in the Atlantic Division thanks to the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, they got some help last night on Thursday. The Ottawa Senators with a 2-1 win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. So now Toronto now with a full 3-point lead on Tampa, a 4-point lead on Florida, and all with 75 games played. So there's no extra games to be had here for any of these squads. Everyone's all squared up and have 7 to go. They do play each other down the stretch, and those are going to be important games next week. Tuesday, Wednesday, it's a back-to-back, so that's kind of difficult for Toronto. But I don't know if they can win one of those in regulation. I don't know if necessarily I look and say the division will be wrapped up if they can get that done, but it should give them a good shot to at least have home ice advantage in the first round and grab one of those either first or second seeds.
Yeah, I mean, this I just, with the way that things have gone, especially like with Tampa, how like that game, you watched any of that game between Tampa and Ottawa, like that was a goalie moment for.
Oh yeah, Linus Ullmark played incredible.
Yeah,
incredible.
Like so a lot of people have asked me, who would you rather? Right? It's been a lot of who would you rather. If you watch the way the Lightning have been playing, I'd rather not. I'd rather not have to deal with that right away.
I'm with you. I don't want anything to do with those Florida teams. I want the Battle of Ontario. I know Toronto has not fared well against Ottawa through the regular season, and this year they lost all 3 games against the Senators. So, if that's an omen you believe in, well, that's not great. But they have had a lot of success against the Senators in the past in the playoffs, and I mean, to me, at least the Ottawa Senators, they haven't been there. They haven't done that. And the playoffs will be brand spanking new to them. And it'll be the Maple Leafs who kind of have the upper hand. And they'll be the veteran team, come playoff time, come round one. If it does turn out to be a Battle of Ontario, just looking over at FanDuel, our good friends over at FanDuel, they have the Maple Leafs as decently heavy favorites now after what happened tonight with Tampa losing for Toronto to end up winning the Atlantic Division, minus 230 to win the Atlantic at this point. Tampa plus 270. So Vegas and our friends at FanDuel are expecting the Maple Leafs to win this division at this point. And it'll be the first division win ever in the Atlantic. They won the Canadian division back in, 2021? And then you have to go all the way back to 1999 for them to win the last division before that. Then you go all the way back to 1963 prior to 2000 to when they won another division title. So, we talked about it on yesterday's show, and it's been a big topic of conversation. It's been a long time since the Maple Leafs have, and it's been very few and far in between, at least since they've won division titles, but they got a good shot right now to get it done. If they could just continue to play their game and try and roll it into, a game here tomorrow night where they're waiting for the Columbus Blue Jackets at home. They've got a couple of days rest. They're waiting. Columbus just got beat up by Colorado. They lost 7-3 on Thursday, and the Leafs 2 nights off to prepare for this game. Columbus has fared well this season against Toronto. They're 2-0 this year, looking to get the sweep, but the Maple Leafs, I don't know. I like the way they're playing right now. They've played some pretty good, consistent hockey, and hopefully they can continue to do that because You pick up 2 points against Columbus. You just continue to stay ahead of the teams behind you. It's no longer about building. Well, I guess it is building a cushion, but it's more so just making sure you keep that 3-point buffer. You keep that 4-point gap. Don't let them close in on you. It is probably more important than making sure that you put a little cushion yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I think the Leafs have gone quite a bit of help. Like in a lot of ways, winning a division, yeah, you can win all the games you want, but at some point, you're going to need a little bit of help and a little bit of luck, right? Things have kind of gone the Leafs' way.
All beat Florida twice this week. You got Tampa going in, or Ottawa going in and beating Tampa, and then Toronto, pretty easy sked. You're right. They go through California. That's a pretty easy, right? They get a point out of the Sharks. They beat Anaheim. They beat LA, and they come home and they beat Florida. So, they've been able to pick up, what's that, 7 of 8 points in the last 4 games. Like, you got to be happy with that.
You do, and like Florida, 4-5-1 in their last 10. Leafs 7-2-1, Lightning 7-3-0. Like that, it's just one of those things where with one of those teams, when one of those teams hit a downward, I wouldn't say downward spot, but when they hit a skid, you have to take advantage, and you got to realize, okay, there's a window here, you got to take it. And I'll give the Leafs a lot of credit with that, because there's been a lot of that. Like the Leafs have won, there was a point where all 3 of these teams were like neck and neck with stretches like this. So this is where moments come in where you see, okay, there's a line in the sand here. We got to, dig in when one of those teams hits a bit of a snag. Got to be ready to capitalize on it. So that's something the Leafs haven't done really over the years. Like if you look at why the Leafs haven't won a division, it's moments like this where they weren't able to fully capitalize, right? Not able to win those games against like Florida or Boston in the past, or
they go on a bit of easy losses to the Phoenix Coyotes and Buffalo Sabres of the world, these sub 500 teams, and just giving away easy points like that throughout the season. It seems like this year they've taken care of business a little more. And again, got to do it again. I mean, look, Columbus is battling for a playoff spot, so this isn't a cupcake game. This isn't the same Blue Jackets of last year and the year before. Like, this is a good Columbus Blue Jackets team. Not very good on the road, though, Dave. Like, It's really interesting. It's a team, their home road splits, the discrepancy there is quite significant. They're 22-10-5 at home with the Cannon. On the road, just 12-21-4. So Toronto, should be able to take care of a team that does not play well on the road. But as we mentioned, it is a scrappy bunch. They've got a playoff spot that they're battling for. They're just a couple points out from the Rangers and from Montreal. And, with both those teams picking up wins over the last couple of nights, they've got to stay in lockstep. And they're a pesky bunch. They're looking to stay in the race and stay in the fight as long as possible. So I know that they're going to push Toronto. Like, they've got some good players, which surprised me, Dave. Like, I'm looking into the matchup here, is that Columbus this season, they're a top 10 scoring team in the NHL. Did you know that? Top 10 in goals per game. That not something I expected to see this year. Like, there's not a lot of, household names on this team yet. You got a guy like Kirill Marchenko, who's got 30 goals. You got Fantilli's quietly put up a decent sophomore year, 24 goals, more than Connor Bedard, by the way. Just want to say that, and more than who went number 2 to Anaheim. I'm at Leo Carlson.
Leo Carlson
got more goals than both those guys. Funny enough, Zach Werenski's having a Norris caliber 74 points in 72 games for Zach Werenski. Like, Kent Johnson's having a really good season for them this year. So they're having a bunch of guys who are coming up, and it's just throughout the lineup. I think that's what it is. It's a deep team that's getting scoring all through the lineup, lines 1 through 4. And Toronto's gonna have their hands full tomorrow night. I just know
both games the Leafs have had their hands full against Columbus. Like, that wasn't even close. Because Columbus, they realize if we outcompete the Leafs, we have a good chance. You look at those 2 games, like the Leafs did not look like a team that was ready to play, or, it's one of those efforts that you're just like, okay, like really. So that's what I'm looking for from the Leafs in this game. Like, are you going to give the Blue Jackets a little more respect and not play down to them like you have, the last 2 games that you've played against them?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm with you, but we'll see what ends up happening. Should be a good game. Obviously, I am curious who will get the start and goal because I don't know. It's kind of like that time where it's you got to figure out what you're doing with the goalie come game one, and if you're gonna do a tandem, then I suppose you just continue to go back and forth the way that you've kind of done all year. But if at some point you want to pick a goaltender, you're going to want to give him a stretch of games, 3-4 games in a row here, just to make sure that he can handle a workload where he can start 3-4 games in a row. Neither goalie has had to really do that much this season. And, I don't know, maybe Stolarz gets the start here, but you got that back-to-back next week. So you're both goalies are going to get in at some point. Do you want Wall to have 10 full days off between starts? It's kind of an interesting point in the season, I guess, where it is difficult to alternate starts right now and keep both goalies fresh. So I'll be curious to see who ends up in net. If you had the lineup card, who would you put in net, Dave, tomorrow night?
This is if we're trying to anoint Anthony Stolarz as the guy, Anthony Stolarz needs to get the start and prove that he's capable of stringing together he's had good, back-to-back quality starts that he's played, but that's with a Joseph Woll start sandwiched in between.
Yeah,
this is a game where I think you give Stolarz the net because you got a back-to-back next week. So guess what? It's not like Joseph Woll is going to be sitting too long waiting for an opportunity. You're going to get him in.
The problem is he hasn't played since Sunday?
Yeah.
So you think if he doesn't play in this game Saturday, the earliest he could play is the following Tuesday. So that's a full week plus 2 days. So you're talking 9, even if he doesn't play the Wednesday, or the Tuesday against Florida, maybe they give that to Stolarz also. They give that next night to Wall. 9 or 10 days between starts. I don't know. If that's the case, if they do decide, to me, I think that'll settle it. If they decide to give Anthony Stolarz this start here on Saturday, and then most likely we'll get the start again against Florida in the first night of the back-to-back, considering how well he played against them the other night. That's 3 straight starts, and that would give Wall 10 days off between starts. That kind of would signal to me that they've made a decision.
In a way, it would. Yeah. I know the schedule time doesn't do favors, so Berube will have an easy out if someone says, "Oh, does this mean that the competition?" So he could be like, "Well, we can't have a goalie sit." So like that part does ring true. I could see, just because if they just don't want Woll sitting too long, he gets Saturday, then you got Stolarz, and then Wall will get Tampa. He has Tampa's number in his career. So yes. I feel like that's just a game that's probably was decided a long time ago that Wall will get. So I guess you don't want him sitting too long. I just think that if Stolarz does get it, it says more about what they think of him in terms of the positioning in the starting position role. But I wonder if maybe they just think it's they still got time to make that decision.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's one of the many questions that I guess still are left to be answered between now and the end of the regular season. Coming up on the other side, Dave, we will go through a few of those questions, 5 storylines to watch down the final stretch of the regular season. Just 7 games to go and still a bunch of questions that we need answered. What those questions are, well, we'll talk about them next here in the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by 5-Hour Energy. Daylight savings time snuck up on us again. And if you're feeling like that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament, or if you're just trying to get in every single opportunity to watch the Leafs play, squeeze in a round of golf after work, or just trying to keep up with your busy day, 5-Hour Energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. or if you're trying to get in some activities now that the weather's a little bit better, you're trying to get a little more active. The longer days, you definitely need to give yourself a boost. And, they got great options like the Tropical Burst, which is usually a go-to for many people. And it's got that on-the-go convenience, whether you're traveling, whether you're out somewhere and you just need that quick 5-hour energy, you can just grab it and it keeps you feeling refreshed. Head to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from, including watermelon, blue raspberry, and peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5-hour energy at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized.
Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you as we are each and every weekday, Monday through Friday, free available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube as well if you enjoy daily Leafs coverage and daily conversations about your beloved Toronto Maple Leafs. Make sure you subscribe to us here at the Locked On Leafs podcast. So we got 7 games to go, Dave. It'll be game 76 tomorrow night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I think there's still a few questions need to be answered between now and the end of the season, or at least 5 storylines that we'll be watching over the course of these final 7 games. I think we've some things have played out over the course of the last couple of weeks. Some of those questions, I think we've got the top 6 solidified now. I think that's pretty much a foregone conclusion that we've got, Matthews, Marner, Nyes, and McMahon, Tavares, Nylander. Those combinations have been great. They've worked very well. I think that is pretty much put to bed. But there are plenty other conversations to be had and more questions that we have. And one that we were getting into just before, we took a break was, what goalie's going to end up earning themselves that game 1 start. And, we don't have to spend too much time on it because we just discussed it just a moment ago, but that still is a question we have. I think that competition is still somewhat alive. I think personally Stolarz took the lead last night, but I feel like I've flip-flopped on this one basically after every start, it feels, for the last month. But last night felt like, Stolarz won them the game and stole a game for them. And to me, that would earn the start for me. And I think he'd be the leader. But I still believe that there's still the competition is still to play out here over the final 7 games. What about you?
I see Stolarz having the inside track right now. The way he's played, his athleticism, his size, he's come up big, and look at the wins he's had, right? LA playoff team, Panthers playoff team. You get the last 2 games that Joseph Woll played, right? The Sharks wasn't his best night. The Ducks, I thought he was really good against
the Ducks,
but it's the Ducks, right? Like we're seeing that the Leafs are definitely giving Stolarz those tougher matchups. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a rotation here, and it kind of also aligns with that. But the quality of competition that Stolarz has had over Woll the last, a little bit, lends me to believe that that's who they will have penciled in as game 1 starter, unless something happens down the stretch. Like the thing with this tandem,
don't put that into the. Don't do that. Don't put it out into the universe, Dave. Come on.
It's my pessimistic side, man. I just, I always have to think of every case.
Yeah, well, if there's one of the 2 guys who would be doing what you're suggesting, it wouldn't be Stolarz. I'll say that. That my confidence is more so in him to stay healthy than it is for Joseph Woll for obvious reasons. But again, I think that's why I think this start tomorrow may say a little bit. Like if Woll gets a start, I don't think it says much. I think that's been the rotation every other game. But if Stolarz gets the start, that will mean 9 or 10 days in between Woll starts. To me, that would suggest that they maybe have a lead horse in this race. So, but still, I think we won't know for sure until this thing plays out and we see kind of how it all unfolds over the last few games. So for me, that's still a question and a storyline to watch here down the final stretch. Another one, Dave, that is a big time storyline and something we need to figure out is, what does the bottom six mix look like? I think that's something we need to know. We know the top six is. The bottom six still has questions. I think we've got a pretty good idea of maybe what the third line, what the personnel will be on the third line. It's just whether, is Domi going to stay in the middle, or eventually are we going to see Scott Lawton shift back to the middle of the ice? Like, I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I brought it up not long ago. Like Pacioretty, he's working his way back. Where does he figure in all this, right? Nick Robertson, it seems like the only way he's going to get back in the lineup right now is if someone gets injured, right? David Kampf, that's one where we have to see what his stats as we are recording right now. We don't know if whatever he left the game with against the Panthers is going to keep him out. So there are a lot. I think you can say for sure Domi and Lawton, that's your those two guys make up part of your third line. Yeah. Lorenz, Kampf, when he's healthy, probably make up. And I think like Lorenz, Kampf, and Holmberg, that is your fourth line. I think the question mark here is between Järnkrok, Robertson, and Pacioretty on that. Now, potentially. Pacioretty could also play fourth line if they feel that. I think Järnkrok, they've really tried to get him as that third line right wing. I think he's got the more upside in terms of his defensive acumen. He can't. It's been a struggle for him since coming back. Not surprised. He's coming back with everybody.
Missed over a year of hockey. It's tough jumping on a moving train like that in the middle of a playoff push.
Yeah. So, but from what I'm seeing, I think right now this is likely where we're heading with the lineup card. But yeah, I'm curious if they do end up, with the matchups getting a bit tougher down the middle, do they try to get the Lawton, Lawton back at center? I think obviously right now the whole point is just trying to get him comfortable with a line, right? They've tried different things. I think right now, because Domi has done 3C for most of the season, they're going to keep that going. But maybe at some point you'll see Lawton get a little bit of time at center in case, in the playoffs, it's needed for him to shift to the center.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the big question marks, right? That we're still need to play out there is kind of the third line. What does that mix look like? And what do they want the identity, I guess, to be of the third line? Is it going to be straight up a matchup defensive line, or do they want it to be kind of a two-way line? Because I think that could also be, the separator between having a guy like Järnkrok and having a guy like Nick Robertson on that line, right? Or possibly a Max Pacioretty. So I think that definitely, again, 7 more games to go. I think we'll see a healthy mix of different guys filter through until, they find something they like and get something to stick. Another storyline to watch here, I think, for the Toronto Maple Leafs is one that we've been watching for a few years but haven't been able to make happen, and it's will Mitch Marner finally get to 100 points. He's never hit that milestone before. He's come close, 97, 99, but he's never hit 100. He's got 93 points right now, Dave. 5th in the NHL with 7 games to go. So 7 points in 7 games. Does he do it?
I think so. I think you look at you got to match up with Columbus. I know Columbus is not a bad team, but there's an opportunity there to get a few points, right? You got a game against Buffalo. I think Detroit are your last 2. There are going to be opportunities for Mitch Marner, but he got 2 points against the Panthers, 3 points against the Sharks. He's got to get a couple of those. It makes it more realistic. He can't go obviously 1-1-1-1. That for me will make it a little bit tougher. And he's also playing a lot. Like it's not like he's seeing a reduction in ice time. So he will get his opportunity. I think projected right now at 102, based on his current production. So it's doable, but I think it's be close. It's gonna be tight.
I think he gets it done. I don't have any an injury would be the only thing I think that keeps him from doing it. If he plays, I don't think he needs to play all 82. I think he could, if he gets, he can get it done by game 81 and then get game 82 off, get the night off if he wants, and rest up. But like you look at the schedule, like you said, they've got Buffalo, who they're allowing 3.54 goals per game. That's 29th in the NHL. Columbus, 27th in the NHL, allowing 3.41 goals per game. Montreal's played better of late, but, they're 24th in goals allowed per game. Detroit, 22nd in goals allowed per game. So a majority of the opponents that they're playing here down the stretch have not been keeping pucks out of the net. And if they're winning games, they've been having to do them in some high-scoring affairs. So, I think there's going to be, a large percentage chance of Mitch Marner getting it done. Plus, the power play hasn't stopped producing, and he's a big part of that too, right? So as long as this power play keeps cooking at, the 35% that it has been since mid-January, I think he's in prime position to be a 100-point player for the Maple Leafs. And that's what, just that'd be the fifth player in franchise history to reach 100. Like it's a very small, surprisingly, very small list of players that have done it. And he's got an opportunity to make it happen. I think he does. But it does beg the question, if he's sitting at 99, Dave, with game 82 on the horizon, which is what, Detroit, I think it is?
Yes.
Does he play that game?
I think he'll want to play it. I don't think last year, because he was at 99, I don't think he got the last game off. He also had a few injuries, so they couldn't give him the game off.
Yeah.
So I think he'll want it. It just, I think it.
But does it become a focus? Like last year,
I don't think it's going to be the Matthews-esque where it's
70 race. I don't know, man. Like 100 point, it's a big number. It's a big number. They might be trying to feed him pucks and get him some extra touches, and maybe they're making not the right play or the simple play, but they're like, hey, we got to make sure that Mitch gets a puck on this so that he can get that point, so he can get that assist. Like those last couple of games could turn into, okay, let's try and get Mitch his cookies. We'll try and get Mitch his points. I hope that doesn't happen, because that's obviously, if you're preoccupied on that, it means you're overthinking things and you're not just letting the game come to you. But we've seen it time and time again where milestones mean a lot to players. It really does. And I'll be curious to see, as he gets closer and less games to get it done, do we see something, do we see them try and force that a little bit? I don't know.
I don't know if Berube will want to see that, but I think he understands what it means for Mitch. Like, it's one thing to say he's capable of being a 100-point player, and him saying, I am a 100-point player.
Right. And if you break it down, even the year that he got to 99, 97, per 60 games, like per game, he's been a 100-point per game player, because he's missed some time or whatever. But still, you got to be a 100-point player to call yourself a 100-point player. So it'll be interesting. And Tavares, he's chasing down, 40. He got 36 right now, I think he's in that range, 36 goals. I think he's chasing down 40. Is that going to be something that they're going to want to try and get him to be just the second time as a Maple Leaf that he's reached that 40 goal mark? You've obviously Willie's creeping into 45. I think 50 is a little bit too far out of there, but those two players, to me, they're chasing milestones. It'll be interesting to see if that becomes something that they try a little too hard to get done and forget about winning the games, because we saw that happen last year a little bit in the race for 70. But again, something to keep an eye on. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll come back and we'll finish up our list. We got 2 more storylines we'll be watching in the final 7 games of the Maple Leafs regular season. That's coming up on the other side here on the Locked On Leafs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NCAA tournament is here, and FanDuel is giving you a chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and who's going to be cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on one team. We're down to the Final Four, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament coming to a close pretty soon, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long. The Locked On Leafs podcast continues. Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with you. It was an off day for the Maple Leafs on Thursday. No practice, so no update on Jake McCabe or David Kampf. I'm sure we'll hear something later on Friday when they hit the ice ahead of the game tomorrow against the Columbus Blue Jackets. So we will try and update you guys over the weekend when we hear a little bit more. Or you can follow us on Twitter, myself at Mickey_Canuck, Dave at D_Morassutti. Another place where you could check on updates on the Maple Leafs, also Locked On Leafs Twitter account as well. And Instagram. We're on Instagram now, too. You can go follow the Instagram page, Locked On Leafs. Go ahead.
Before you go, before we continue, we'll finish the 2 brain question. I have something to bring up at the end of the show before I forget.
Is it Instagram related?
No, but it was something I posted on the Instagram that you reminded me I wanted to bring up, but we'll do it at the end.
Okay, we'll do it at the end. So stay tuned to the end. There's
my brain reminding me something.
Yeah, write it down. Write it down.
I'm writing it down right now, actually. Yeah.
There's a tease to stick around till the end of the show, which a couple more minutes here as we're coming up against it. But we've got 2 more kind of storylines that we'll be tracking in the final stretch of the regular season here. 7 games to go for the Maple Leafs. And I've got a question for you, Dave. Like it's a question, not necessarily like a storyline to watch or a burning question I have, but it's one for you and one for the fans in particular. So if you're listening to the podcast, you want to reach out to us on Instagram or social media, Twitter, or if you're listening via YouTube, you can answer this question down below. But like, do you need to see Auston Matthews get into Super Saiyan mode down the stretch here? Like, do you want to see him start scoring in bunches again? Like, he's 7 games to go. I want to see him get like 5-6 goals in these final 7 games, and that'll make me feel good about where he's at health-wise going into the playoffs.
Yeah, for me, I would like to see a little bit of it, but I'm not like we have seen him turn his game around. We've seen him be a little more of what we were expecting this year. I think whatever he's just looking to play with whatever injury he's got. He's just doing his best.
He has 2 goals in the last 7 games. I want to see more. And again, it's not that he's not playing great and that he's not scoring, but like, come on, let's get it going here, Matty. Like, I just want to see a big outburst here and him go on a nice stretch of 4 or 5 games again.
Yeah, I mean, look, the game against the Kings,
LA,
LA. He was an animal. He was a beast. Okay, we need more of that. Like, you need to see more of it from Matthews for sure.
Third period against Florida, I thought he played excellent too. I did. But
so we're seeing it
play like that 4 or 5 games in a row.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to see it. I'd rather him. He is shown, I think, in that series against Boston, like when he was not dealing with whatever he was dealing with, we saw a bit of it. But yeah, we need to see more of it. Do I need to see him go on a heater down the stretch? I like to see him just build that consistency that we know he can play with. So yeah, I think maybe just not seeing him, kind of fall off or just kind of look a little laxadays like we have seen him play this season. So I don't need, like, I'm not saying he has to do it, but it'd be nice if he would do it.
Yeah, it would be very, very
It would
nice
be
if he would
welcome
do
for
that.
sure.
I would definitely welcome that from Auston Matthews, but he's sitting on what 29 goals. He's got to at least get one more, right? He can't have a sub 30 goal season. That's not Auston Matthews at all.
No.
Throughout his entire career, I mean, he's actually, this is the lowest amount of goals he's ever scored. Even was it year 2 where he got injured, he only played 62 games, but 34 goals. Year 3, 37 goals, and then he's been a 40 goal plus player over the course of the last 5 seasons. Last year, 69. We know that. But this year, yeah, still sitting on 29 goals through 60 games, and it's just been a bit of a snake bitten type of year. But it's as long as he plays and scores in the playoffs, honestly, I guess that's all that should matter at the end of the day. He's done enough in the regular season throughout his career where now I guess I just want to see the playoff success. So maybe asking for 5-6 goals down the stretch is it's a little much, a little hefty. Maybe it's unnecessary, but to your point, it'd be nice to see. Here's one thing that I do wonder, Dave, and that's whether or not Morgan Rielly and Brandon Carlo can sustain and possibly build on the chemistry that they have created since the trade deadline. Because those two played great, and Morgan Rielly has really kind of turned his game around here with Brandon Carlo. And the question that I have is, can this sustain and then play into the playoffs? That's what I want to know, and that's what I'll be making sure of, is we don't see a dip from Morgan Rielly and this Riley-Carlo pairing.
I've seen a different Riley these last few games, especially against Florida. I thought he's looked a lot more composed in his own end. He's making the smart plays, the simple plays. So I think that chemistry has come. Carlo has been pretty good too. That I'm sure they're probably getting a little more favorable matchups with McCabe and Tanev doing a lot of the heavy lifting. But I think you're seeing what I think maybe Craig Berube is probably telling Riley is, you got the partner now. The playoffs is a perfect time for a reset. Just flushed out whatever happened in the regular season. Things can change in the playoffs, and we saw it. We've seen it before. So I think it's getting there, but we haven't seen him provide that offensive. Like, that's where he needs to be a difference maker, especially at 5-on-5. Find a way to drive more offense, because now you got a defensive partner that you can rely on to, I wouldn't say cover up mistakes, but you have someone back there that you can rely on.
Yeah.
Now it's time for Riley to be, that offensive driver. And I think it's happening, but I think we need to see more of it.
Yeah, Mark Giordano was on Overdrive Thursday, and they asked him, like, hey, you had a chance to play with Morgan Rielly. You've been one of the many players that they've stuck next to him and tried to get him going, and nobody seemingly has been able to get a level of play out of him quite like Carlo has in a while. So yeah, they asked him, like, what is it about Brandon Carlo? Like, what is it about having to play with Rielly, that allows him to succeed? And he just said, look, play a simple game. He's like, got to play a simple, predictable game. That's exactly what Brandon Carlo brings, right? Rielly knows what Carlo's going to be doing. He knows where he's going to be on the ice, because Carlo just goes to where he's supposed to be, right? Like, he knows, okay, you need that quick outlet pass, I'm there, right? And I think that honestly means the world to a guy like him. And Rielly now knows, like, okay, I can jump up into the rush and know that Carlo, he's got it. Like, he's a good skater. He's got a disruptive stick. Like, if he ends up, having to go one-on-one with an offensive player, he usually can win that battle, right? He's got good gaps, and he can usually win that battle, knock the puck off his stick, and, zone denials. He was like in like the 80-something percentile in zone denials this year at the time of the trade, and he's been doing a great job of that since he's got here. So I'd imagine he's still, in the upper 80s, if not 90th percentile in zone denials, and it's just the type of partner Rielly needs. And together at 5-on-5 so far, they've played 154 minutes, got a 59 expected goal percentage. like nearly
Pretty good.
60%. That's pretty darn good. Pretty darn good. And that's with like they have more defensive zone starts than they do offensive zone starts. So they're often starting their own end. They're getting the puck out quick, transitioning up ice, and allowing the forwards to do their thing. And Riley's been a big part of carrying that puck up and joining the rush and getting some opportunities, especially of late. So, hopefully they can continue to build off that, because I think we know what we got in McCabe and Tanev, assuming McCabe is healthy. Again, there's a question mark. Is McCabe healthy? That's a question, I guess, that we could toss in here as well.
Yeah.
But assuming that those two are healthy and playing at the level that they've played all season long, that's your good top pair, shutdown pair. You now add this Riley-Carlo. You've got a formidable top four you are happy with. OEL, he's banged up, obviously, but he came back last night in that game against Florida. We know what he can do as a third pair defenseman. He showed it last year in Florida en route to a Stanley Cup. He can anchor a third pair. And Benoit's, played better of late as well. So I think, defensively, if that Riley-Carlo pairing can keep playing at this level, defensively, this is the best blue line we've seen in this Matthews, Marner, Nylander era. Like 9 consecutive trips to the postseason. They've never had a blue line like this. I think that's a big difference, a big time difference, and I think it'll show come playoff time.
Exactly, right? The goaltending and the defense. Everyone, so many people that they have asked what's different about the Leafs this year, I think almost every single person starts with the blue line. This is a different blue line that we've come to see, right? Three big additions and 3 veteran additions, guys who have been through playoff battles before. So they know what it takes. They know what the expectations are. So, and I think that takes so much pressure off of Riley. And I think that was the whole goal of this. But now he's got to do his part now. He's got to pitch in and be a difference maker at some point.
Yep, 100%. And we saw that happen in that series against Tampa. He was arguably the best hockey he's ever played in his career. Was that series against Tampa. And Luke Schenn played a very simple brand of hockey, right? Physical, stay-at-home defenseman, went to the spots where Riley knew he'd be for a little outlet pass, just for a little bit of help. And Carlo does a lot of the same things as well. So hopefully we can see a similar Morgan Rielly come playoff time and maybe unlock and unleash, the Mo of old of a couple playoff years past. But yeah, so there's some storylines, some things that we'll be watching going into this weekend and the last couple of weeks. 7 games to go. Game 76 tomorrow night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll be watching for all of these storylines to see if we can get any answers or get any closer to those milestones in this one and the games beyond. Anything else that sticks out to you, an honorable mention or anything? Or this is pretty well what we'll be paying attention to over the next couple weeks?
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much everything people are going to watch for.
All right, buddy. That'll do it for us here today on the podcast. And thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow Dave at D_Morassutti. Follow the show as well at Locked On Leafs on Twitter and on Instagram. Dave, which? Go ahead.
Yeah, so on today's post, a little shout out to Ben Danford, who had already been named the OHL's top defenseman, the Bobby Orr Award. He was pulled today by the OHL coaches among Eastern Conference defensemen. He was ranked the best defensive defenseman and shot blocker. So, shout out to Ben Danford.
We'll give that. How many booms you want to give that, Dave? How many booms you want to give that?
3 right there.
Boom, boom, boom. I think we're too old to be doing those booms at this point.
Probably. That's why I let you do it.
But congrats. No, man, Ben Danford. That's really good to hear because, obviously Ben Danford, first round pick of the Maple Leafs and was considered like maybe a slight reach, but the Leafs, they've been able to do that. Easton Calm was considered a reach, and, he's turned out to be quite the prospect. Matthew Nyes was a good pick back in the second round a few years ago. So at least scouting staff might know what they're doing. So we'll see, but that's a really good development there in his D+1 year out of Ben Danford. We'll see if he can make an impact next year with the club. All right, that does it for us today. We'll be back with another episode on Monday. Enjoy the game tomorrow night. Leafs and Blue Jackets, 7 o'clock on a hockey night in Canada. But until then, keep locked right here on Locked On Leafs.